The CEO's voice echoed through the boarding bridge before anyone understood what was happening. Escort him off my aircraft immediately. Two security officers stepped toward Captain Ethan Carter as stunned passengers lifted their phones to record the confrontation. Ethan stood perfectly still wearing his captain's uniform, while his 11-year-old daughter Lily clung nervously to his hand. "I've flown this aircraft longer than anyone in this company," Ethan said calmly, but CEO Victoria Hale wasn't interested in explanations. She accused him of delaying the airline's most important inaugural flight over imaginary concerns and publicly stripped him of command. The cabin erupted in whispers as Ethan quietly walked away with his daughter, unaware that within the next hour the luxury jet would suffer a failure only one pilot alive knew how to survive. As they entered the terminal, Lily looked up at her father with confused eyes. "Dad, did you do something wrong?" Ethan smiled gently despite the humiliation burning inside him. "No, sweetheart. Sometimes people mistake confidence for wisdom." Since losing his wife 4 years earlier, Ethan had raised Lily alone while balancing overnight hospital visits for her heart condition with the demanding life of an airline captain. Every paycheck disappeared into medical bills, yet he never complained because every successful flight meant another chance to give his daughter the future her mother had dreamed of. Few people inside the airline knew Ethan had spent years helping engineers test the company's newest aircraft before returning to commercial flying. To executives, he was simply another experienced pilot. To Lily, he was the strongest man in the world. As the aircraft pushed back from the gate, Ethan couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something about the morning's inspection still didn't make sense. Only minutes earlier, Ethan had noticed a brief but unusual vibration while checking the aircraft's advanced flight control systems. It lasted barely 2 seconds before disappearing, but it reminded him of a rare software conflict he had witnessed years ago during prototype testing. He immediately requested a delay so engineers could perform additional diagnostics. Victoria, determined to impress investors, regulators, and the international press gathered for the launch, saw his request as sabotage rather than caution. In front of everyone, she dismissed his concerns as outdated thinking from an overly cautious pilot and ordered another captain to replace him immediately. Several senior engineers looked uncertain but remained silent, unwilling to challenge the company's powerful new CEO. By the time Ethan reached the terminal windows, the aircraft was already taxiing toward the runway, carrying nearly 300 passengers into the sky. As the aircraft accelerated for takeoff, Ethan noticed something through the terminal glass that made his stomach tighten. During the transition from ground power to onboard electrical systems, one of the cockpit displays flickered for less than a second. It was so subtle that nobody else reacted, but Ethan recognized it instantly. That tiny flicker confirmed his worst fear. The vibration he had detected wasn't mechanical at all. It was the first symptom of 2 flight computers drifting out of synchronization. He desperately called Airline operations, but his security clearance had already been revoked after his removal from the flight. His warnings never reached the cockpit. Moments later, the aircraft disappeared into the clouds while Ethan stood helplessly watching, knowing the real danger wouldn't appear until the jet encountered severe weather. 3 hours into the flight, everything changed. A violent storm forced the aircraft through intense turbulence, triggering exactly the electrical fluctuation Ethan had feared. Warning alarms filled the cockpit as the sophisticated flight control system suddenly rejected its own commands. The autopilot disconnected, navigation screens flashed conflicting information, and the aircraft began responding unpredictably to pilot inputs. Captain Marcus Reed and his first officer worked through every emergency checklist available, but nothing matched the failure unfolding before them. Back at airline headquarters, engineers stared at live telemetry in disbelief as the aircraft's computers effectively began fighting each other for control. Victoria demanded immediate answers, only to hear an engineer quietly reveal the truth that drained the color from her face. "There's only one captain certified to recover this exact failure, and you removed him from the flight." The room fell silent as forgotten engineering records were pulled from the archives. Years earlier, before tragedy forced him to prioritize his daughter over research, Ethan had worked alongside aerospace engineers developing the emergency recovery procedures for the airline's revolutionary aircraft. During certification, regulators had discovered a highly improbable software conflict capable of disabling the flight control logic during specific electrical transitions. Ethan hadn't just studied the failure. He had helped invent the recovery sequence after hundreds of hours inside advanced simulators. Because the malfunction was considered almost impossible, only one operational pilot completed the specialized certification before the program ended. That pilot was Ethan Carter. Victoria realized the man she had publicly humiliated wasn't merely her most experienced captain. He was the only person alive who understood what was happening aboard Flight 728. Victoria immediately called Ethan, expecting anger or refusal. Instead, he answered calmly before she could finish apologizing. "Tell me exactly what the aircraft is doing." Within seconds, Ethan requested direct communication with the cockpit and access to the aircraft's live engineering data. As he analyzed the telemetry, he uncovered an even more terrifying reality. The software conflict wasn't the actual emergency. It was merely triggering a hidden timing error that could permanently lock the aircraft's control surfaces if the crew attempted the standard recovery procedure. Every second the pilots followed the published checklist brought them closer to complete loss of control. The situation wasn't difficult, it was fatally misunderstood. Ethan instructed the crew to stop every current procedure and prepare for an entirely different recovery sequence that had never been published outside the original certification program. Connected directly to the cockpit, Ethan spoke with the steady confidence that had carried thousands of passengers safely across the world. "Marcus, listen carefully. Ignore the warning messages. They're lying to you because the computers are no longer sharing the same clock." Following Ethan's precise instructions, the crew performed an exact sequence of electrical resets, timing delays, and manual control inputs measured down to the second. The cabin remained tense as passengers gripped their seats through violent turbulence, unaware their survival depended on a voice speaking from hundreds of miles away. Finally, after one last synchronized reset, every warning light disappeared. Flight controls returned to normal, and the aircraft stabilized. Tears filled Victoria's eyes as she listened to the cockpit report successful recovery. The man she had thrown off his own flight had just saved every soul on board without asking for recognition or revenge. The aircraft landed safely at the nearest international airport, where exhausted passengers applauded the crew without yet knowing the full story. Investigators quickly confirmed that Ethan's original inspection had been completely accurate and that his requested delay would have prevented the entire emergency. News outlets across the country exposed Victoria's decision to ignore a legitimate safety concern for the sake of a public relations event. Within days, the airline's board removed her as CEO for gross negligence and implemented sweeping reforms requiring every pilot's safety report to receive independent engineering review before executives could intervene. Meanwhile, employees gathered quietly in the terminal as Ethan returned to work. One by one, mechanics, flight attendants, and fellow pilots stood to applaud, not because the company instructed them to, but because respect had finally replaced assumptions. Lily ran into her father's arms, holding up a drawing of an airplane beneath the words, "My dad always brings people home." And for the first time since his wife's passing, Ethan allowed himself to believe that all the sacrifices had truly mattered. People often mistake authority for leadership, but true leaders are the ones who stay calm when everyone else chooses pride over wisdom. Ethan never fought to protect his reputation. He fought to protect lives, proving that character speaks loudest when no applause is guaranteed. Sometimes the quiet professional standing in the background carries the knowledge that can save everyone, and dismissing experience simply because it challenges your ego can have consequences far greater than embarrassment. If this story reminded you that humility, courage, and integrity will always outlast power, share it with someone who needs the reminder. Subscribe for more unforgettable single dad stories. And remember, respect the people whose experience was earned long before their value was recognized.